Welcome everybody to the Area 111 live stream. This show is RH coming at you from Central Florida again. Welcome to the live stream. There's a lot to unpack tonight, and there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and a lot of cover-ups to distract and planning information set up. You remember in the past, they set the precedent of staging crime scenes, you name it, false witnessing, lying about others, committing libel, slander, defamation, everything. These people are all in. They're all in to try to remove President Trump from power. This is the same people. They're trying to push back because they're being exposed. Okay. And people, we should already seen their playbook unfold all the way back to 2016. We should see who the same people are that are involved in malicious prosecutions, false arrest, you name it, false imprisonment for people that just took a tour, in the Capitol building. We've seen all of this unfold. And, it kind of, the most dangerous things that's going on right now behind the scenes. And now they'll throw you out there in that Mockingbird media narratives and get people tangled up all in this. And we know, those of us, especially that have served our country honorably, I might add, have been in this for a very long time. We see the psyops operation, how it affects people on the streets. We know who's setting up these interstate rights. By the way, that's a felony. None of them been held accountable. None of them, in my opinion. Maybe just a few of their foot soldiers. But tonight's live stream, and this is getting really serious. I'm sick of these people going out there pretending to be world leaders or leaders of these other countries when they were out there, when they began calling for a preemptive nuclear strike on another country. So, okay, Russia, right? Russia, calling for a preemptive nuclear strike to enter us into a nuclear war, which there's no turning back, in my opinion. Mutually assured fools. That's what I call them. And I know what it says in the Bible. Forgive me that, I'm asking God to forgive me if that's a sin. But that's basically how I view it. In most cases, these people don't care about anybody but themselves. We saw that go on for 4 total years. 4 total years. Because they were reposturing. They were reposturing, especially after 2022, when we took over the popular majority. So they were running these strategic operations to ensure the socialist, Marxist, communist takeover was sealed. The deal was sealed. Now, the very first Congress, I think it's the 117th Congress, people have to go out there and listen to the unsealed classified document. That was on J6. Okay, we know what year. J6. The first congressional session. I'm not talking about the joint session that came later. The certification process. I'm talking about before that. Now, we have to pay very close attention to the foreign actors and why the diversion. You look over here, you look over there, you look everywhere else. We're talking about trillions of dollars at stake for them if President Trump was elected the first time and elected the second time. We're talking about major economic moves, military posturing, basically very concerning military posturing, I might add. And I want to set this straight. People like myself that have been around for over 6.5 decades, they know what I'm talking about, that served our military. We fought. We served our country. We risked our lives. Some of us in the combat theater, some of us training and being involved, directly involved to combat the combat region, training, being part of training people to be combat ready and combat ready exercises, basically getting people at that position of readiness that they can go anytime they're called upon, to basically carry out their mission. Now, it disturbs me to no end. You got some dumb hacks out there that they wasn't even in their big wheel. They hadn't even gotten their big wheel yet and started riding down the little sidewalk in front of their home. Some of them hadn't even put their pacifier in their mouth for the first time. Sit there lecturing us about what we know, what we don't know, and they know, they're the arbiters of information and how they attack and divide us up, all for their own personal financial interest. We need everybody in this because there's a spiritual war, which includes the physical war. First of all, you have to have the spiritual motive to basically initiate war. That's the evil spirit side of things. Calling for preemptive nuclear strikes, calling for the murders of millions of citizens that most of them are just victims of circumstance. Now, I, for one, served during both Jimmy Carter and President Reagan and the presidents that ensued. I got to go down the list. Jimmy Carter, that was actually, I entered active duty before 1979, and people know what I'm talking about when I say 1979, the revolution. So, Jimmy Carter, President Reagan, you got Poppy Bush, you got Bill Clinton, you got George W. Bush. I was retired before from the United States Air Force before Barack Obama ever got in office. But I was warned about him from top level Christian leaders of who he really was in 2008. And that's when I started to basically start researching. I was not into politics whatsoever. They exposed him to me with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help them God. That's what they gave me. They gave me the truth so I could go out there and share that truth. And that's the reason why I support Truth Social. That's the reason why I support President Trump. To turn all this stuff around. My main motive here on this channel, and it always has been, is national defense, self-defense, and help stopping the needless loss of life with all these wars, these senseless wars. I'm going to break it down to people tonight. And this is going to be kind of like a history lesson, but I'm going to try to make it short as possible. And I'm not talking down to people. that are here listening to this channel, by no means. I'm sick of people taking over the narrative and gaining total control over social media and everything else, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. You know, there's disinformation. I understand you're going through these covert operations, and sometimes you got to use disinformation. We're talking in general terms here. We're going to break it down in general terms. We're not talking about basically OPSEC violations and COMSEC violations. People know what I'm talking about. Now, a very important place card holder video I placed on Rumble tonight before the live stream began, and I gave people time to watch that video. So that's going to be a main source. A main source. We're going to break it down who these people really are. The main source of tonight's information. And it all ties in with nuclear weapon posturing, mobilization, you name it, which is very dangerous. There's an economic hand that's being played in the background. And we know it ties in with the Federal Reserve and ties into us regaining our sovereignty of our country, gaining control of our currency, gaining control of, the needless theft of American taxpayer dollars, which is now amounted to trillions and trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars in basically unconstitutional debt that we have to pay down, or they claim we have to pay down. If it's proven to be unconstitutional, I think that debt needs to be wiped clean. And if they've been using it to pay foreign pensions and that kind of thing, and it's basically propped up their countries or governments around the world, then hey, the time for y'all stealing us from American taxpayers over. The time for us, for our sovereignty to return and our independence to be returned to America, each and every one of us, is begun. It should begin. Of course, I'm not the one running the show. I'm not a spokesperson for the military, the government, or any entity. This is coming from RH, from me to the listeners. Now, a lot of this goes all the way back to the Charlie Wilson War. If you have never watched the movie, go check it out. Now, the place card holder video I shared that over the actual video itself. I shared it over on Truth Social. They were decoding it last I checked, right before I started the live stream. So once it's decoded, you can hear the volume. This is what we're up against. And the people that set that up. Remember, they installed the Mike Bravo into power. They installed the Mike Bravo into power. Who helped install Mike Bravo? That organization into power. That would be Mike. Who installed Mike Bravo, the organization, into power? Who went to Egypt in 2009 and put Mike in power? Of course, they wanted a more far left a person, not from the right. They wanted the far left, but they revived that organization. The main culprit in that was Barack Obama. Now, Barack Obama has always believed, based by his own words and terminology, he's always believed that Israel is occupying Palestine, the nation of Palestine. Okay, you have to go back to history and look at the antiquity and look at the maps. There was never, ever a Palestine, kingdom of Palestine. There was never a kingdom. There's a kingdom out there now, isn't there? I see you. Yeah, I know. I know they see us. Not worried about it. If they should have been more covert, then they should have been more covert. Like all the only ones they can blame is themselves. So in the breakdown of that video, it was an Egyptian cleric at a rally in Gaza with over a 500,000 people present. Hey Tracy, great to see you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support. This is probably one of the most important live streams I've ever done. Yeah, as you can hear my voice, I'm a little bit upset. This is not a game. This is not a movie. These are real actions being taken. Some of them covert, as far as the mobilization, and some of them overt. They're like flex your muscle, right? We don't need, the United States of America does not need to flex our muscle. Walk softly, but carry a big stick. Walk softly, carry a big stick. So they know you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. Oh, they haven't been activated yet. The people behind this, they have not been activated yet. There needs to be arrests right now. You need to take these mass murders off our streets of America. Off our streets. And the ones operating offshore, you need to basically work with those world leaders and take them off the streets as well. There's no place for them to run. There's no place for them to hide anymore. This is the 21st century. We don't operate in buggies and horses and ships that take like 5 months to get to another continent or whatever. This is the 21st century. So now in that video, you will see over on True Social, that's Area 111 without the space. I have the blue background avatar with a capital white letter A. That's my channel, not the other one. So sometimes you have to basically click two searches. You click Area 111, it's the white letters, right, on the channel search on Rumble. And then you have to click on that search bar again to see the blue background with a capital letter A. Now, I wanted to talk about this very much because this is what's at stake right now. That place card video. Remember who went to Cairo, Egypt, and gave a speech and put that organization, the Mike Bravo organization, right on the front row. Who helped orchestrate a prison break in Cairo, Egypt, to get Mike in power? Who was responsible for helping to kill at least 2 Egyptian prison guards to free Mike? What other country actors were involved? Well, Why was Mike being basically being tried for treason? What was the treasonous act? Which country was he working with? You'll see that information as I put it out in this night's live stream. Now, if you go listen to that video that I placed on Truth Social at Area 111, again without the space, you'll see that Egyptian cleric. That's a rally in Gaza. Approximately 500,000 people were there at that rally. Now, the Egyptian cleric with Mike sitting in the stands right behind them as he delivered the speech, they said they were going to create the United States global Arab caliphate. I want y'all to pay attention to the word global and think about foundations when I'm talking about that. Think about who invited Mike to be a guest speaker. And at that during that speech, he called for a new world order. A post what? Wiping them off the map, right? What they say about us. You know, I'm not going to chant what they said about us. You shall know what I'm talking about. The ones that have been paying attention know what I'm talking about. So they installed the mullahs to get rid of the Shah of Iran. They installed them. So they installed them. If it was a covert operation to install the mullahs, then they set up a remote station in Tehran. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. And I'll give you all the players. That's why you could see no emails. You couldn't see their devices. They crushed them with a hammer or did whatever they got to do. Remember the Russian reset and how it all plays together. In my opinion, remember the Russian reset? That was in March of 2009, I believe it was, or April, the latest, of 2009, when basically the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, provided the foreign minister of Russia the Russian reset button, right? Remember that? Of course, Barack Obama was the president at the time. Then it was about 6 months later, Barack Obama traveled to Novo-Ogaryovo, which is a mansion in the countryside of Moscow Oblast. And why do you think that Barack Obama brought his intel chief along with him? Why do you think that they didn't use proper protocol and meet with the president of Russia at the time was Dmitry Medvedev? So, you know, sleeping with the enemy at Moscow, right? They did meet with Medvedev first, but see, they had their primary concern was that operation that they were going to perform to use Russia as a middleman to deliver what? U1, right? U1, U-1. Remember that? Okay, go check out Peter Schwartz's book, The Cash book, not Cash Patel book. Okay, these people know what I'm talking about. That's why they stand back in the background. They don't never basically comment or anything. So the Egyptian cleric basically made a proclamation that Mike, or let's just say Mohammed Morsi, was going to lead a ground invasion into Israel and make Jerusalem the United States global Arab caliphate, not in Mecca or not in Medina, but in Jerusalem. Not in Mecca, not in Medina, but in Jerusalem. Does that sound like a two-state solution to y'all? If you go listen to the video, what were they chanting? Well, they were making the same chant that Major Hassan chanted out right before he killed those innocent. I believe both men and women were killed in that attack. That was under whose FBI? That was under Robert Mueller's FBI. He was FBI director. Who was the FBI director under 9/11? That would be also Robert Mueller. Who was behind the what do you call it? The bombing in Boston bombing. That would be also Robert Mueller. 0 for 3, right? 0 for 3. They kept him on board, didn't they? I mean, who would pick up? You pick up your lineup, right? And you're going to get, your power hitter, right, in fourth position, right, to knock all the other runners in. Grand slam, right? You got a guy on first, second, third, and you're up the bat. You're the fourth batter. So would you put your worst batter up the bat for the fourth batter to drive all the other runners in home and score 4 runs? Would you put the worst guy in there? Remember, this is not RH's words, what I'm about to say. The chairman, the Senate Intelligence Committee chairman, called Robert Mueller aggressively deceptive during the 9/11 criminal investigation. Don't blame me. The guy wrote books. He's very credible. Used to be the governor of the state of Florida. And he became a senator, right? Bob Graham. So, how's it all tie together? They were going to set up an invasion, and that's the reason why they were preparing in those tunnels. They were being funded. Remember the Freedom Flotillas and all that stuff? That was just a distraction. By land, air, sea, whatever method they could, they had to bring in the materials to basically further those tunnel building, whatever operations. They were ready to go. There was people that said, no, you're not going to do that. No, 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 no. Now, Barack Obama, like I said, always basically said that I'm not quoting him directly, going back all the way when he's in Harvard, right? Israel's occupying an occupier. They're occupying land that don't even belong to them. They could talk about two-state solution all you want, but you go listen to that speech that Egyptian cleric made that worked for Mohammed Morsi. Okay. So we don't misunderstand who the persons are here. Who was Mike Bravo, the organization, working with? Well, remember 1979? Remember I said, well, you put those people in charge, you got your station there, right? In Tehran. So they were basically, look at the threats. Those were credible. And after those campaign promises, Morsi did say, no, 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 I'm not going to lead a war, a ground war against Israel, and, make Jerusalem the United States global Arab caliphate, the one party solution. He didn't go out there and basically say, no, 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 I'm not going to do that. Why? Well, you watch the crowd and their chants. You know why. He was shut down basically in the last inning. He was shut down in the last inning. They were about ready to take over Israel. A total overthrow. You can call it a coup, whatever you want to call it. A total overthrow. Now, we talked about before nuclear armed countries, and I won't get into that any much further. So I see these players, how they're going out there, and they think their propaganda is gonna work. See, it works on people that are uneducated about history. They can do that all the time. They can play their journalists, and their media stations that the IC community has taken over. You can see them, and they go out there and they try to protect their own. So you think about this at that rally when he was running for president of this Egypt, his cleric, one of his main campaign senior advisors, whatever, working with the campaign, they were going to basically make Jerusalem the United States. Where do you think they got that term from? I mean, global Arab caliphate in Jerusalem. And again, I can't stress this enough. Not Mecca or not Medina. That's why they chant from the river to the sea. That's who those people are. That's who put them in charge. They want to expand the kingdom, the global kingdom. Morsi called for it himself, a new world order. When he was invited as a guest speaker at the Clinton Global Initiative Foundation. Now, wouldn't you, whenever you saw and you got the information, are you going to tell me that nobody briefed the former First Lady at the time? Nobody briefed her back then? She ran in 2016, right? Nobody basically wondered, hey, you might get some pushback with this stuff, because God forbid they start a nuclear war. So again, who was used? Now, I don't have the evidence, but the DNI does, unless they destroyed all that too in one of their burn barrel parties. because the good guys breached their perimeter security. So you know what that they're taught, right? Destroy all their devices, destroy their hard drives, their thumb drives, destroy their devices with hammers. Oh, and wipe them with a cloth. All of them. That's the same MO from all of them. The Delta Sierra we call deep state, right? That's their MO. That's what they do. They falsely accuse Trump, or Russia, right? So why? They can take over the investigation to destroy all the evidence on themselves. They're masters at deception. They went too far, though, where it became obvious to all of us that are paying attention. The list, right? Well, y'all going to get a list. And all the other distractions. Oh, we're going towards, they're heading us towards a nuclear holocaust. Okay, I mean, that's a pretty big distraction, don't you think? Going to the Federal Reserve and talking about, the receipts. What was it, $2 billion in renovations? I can't remember how much money it was, but quite a bit of money. They got the receipts on that too. You see, if they keep the interest rates high, right, it's going to pay for their war. They're saying that we're moving in nuclear weapons into the UK, and this is from a person I respect. I don't, of course, you don't agree with everything everybody has to say. Tyler Durden, but anyways, I think he's from The Intercept. Wish they'd share the source references, but U.S. nuclear weapons transferred to UK soil for the first time over 15 years. For the first time in over 15 years, right? So remember when I talked to people, I mean, I helped try to explain nukes for NATO, that Air and Space Forces magazine article. Let me go find it here. Hold on a second. Okay. Testing. How's the volume been for people that are still here on the live stream? How's the volume been since the live stream started? You guys heard me? Testing 1, 2. Okay, we got 5 people watching. Give me a 5x5 if you heard the live stream the entire time, the audio the entire time I started this live stream. Give me a 5x5, please. Okay. Now remember what I believe Barack Obama, I've talked about this before, kind of like in a roundabout way. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, so yeah, 5x5, thank you. But yeah, okay, Steve. Hey, Steve, great to see you here. Daniel Barry, of course, as always. So let's recap on the Remember, they were basically working for or working with, let's just say working for and with a state sponsor of terrorism. Working for or with, in some cases and in some angles, the IRGC. And these are the people that's behind this. They are behind. You can start seeing it now in their chants. Wearing the same clothing, everything on our streets. That's part of the, remember I talked about Acorn, then it morphed into Organizing for Action, where they basically had about a 30,000 foot soldier army ready to be called or activated. Then you have what it went to the National Democratic Redistricting Committee. That's an organization. Again, National Democratic Redistricting Committee. It's an organization where they were going to go in there along with their invasion, simultaneously along with their invasion, they're going to set up holding centers and provide transportation into all those districts they need to take over total control. The overthrow now, let me be perfectly clear. This is still an ongoing overthrow of the United States, our government, our republic, as per Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. This is their goal. This is their goal. Now people say, okay, well, all right, you're a paranoid schizophrenic. Man, ain't nothing going to happen. It's a nothing burger. I hope nothing happens because I pray and I believe the power of prayer that this doesn't happen. I pray against it, not for it. That's why we're putting out the information. You expose the evil so we can stop the evil together as a team. So this goes back, remember Charlie Wilson War, and then you got, okay, the nuclear deal. Then you got Obama traveling over to Novo Igoriovo with his intel chief for that, putting together that covert operation to basically send uranium to Russia. In my opinion, based on the associates working closely with Barack Obama to include his chief of staff. Remember her? Where was she born at? Hey, good to see you, Tanya, if I didn't say hello earlier. Thank you for being here. Okay. So it's going to start to tie together. So you'll get some diversions along the way. That's the way they operate. You get what do you call it? A diversion. They're great at diversions because a lot of these are, plain and simple, they're military operations. They're covert military operations. Remember, they put this together. Even when we got the deputy National Defense Secretary going off, I wrote her name down. Let me see if I can find that name. I wrote her name down the other day. Okay. Where they were releasing all this information. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Dr. Evelyn Farkas. Okay. This basically directly ties in with the military. And I hate to say it, there's bad apples in every organization around the world. There's bad apples in all our organizations. There's bad apples in our government, our Congress, at the federal level all the way down to the city, the local level. Yeah, good to see you again, Steve. Appreciate it. I'm trying to keep a little bit closer eye on the chat, because I want this to be as what do you call it, comprehensive, where people can understand, or at least I'm trying to be as comprehensive as possible, where you can understand the message. So what would, let's just use a hypothetical situation. What if you know there's some entity out there that's about to take away your entire livelihood, your freedom, everything, right? They're about to take away everything from you. They're about to expose if you're a bad apple, right? We're talking about the bad apples being exposed. That has cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of American citizens. This is far greater than the Russia stuff, but it ties in together. No, where did they start parroting that treason is, there's a statute of limitation on treason? I don't know. We need a constitutional scholar or a lawyer, a constitutional lawyer, to come out and dispute it or agree with it. So you want to equalize the Middle East because you don't like that a certain country has nuclear weapons. You tried all you could do to try them to dismantle them, whatever. So what were they going to do? See, they believe that Israel is an occupying country. They're not even legitimate. They won't even recognize Israel as a country. It's obvious. So that, of course, they don't want a two-state solution. What they want is Israel to be totally surrounded. Totally surrounded. So there's an inevitable outcome. If that doesn't work, they move to the next phase because they want to expand their kingdom. We're talking about a new world global kingdom, right? That's why they can't have sovereign countries like America or any other country, or Russia for sure. So what did the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense say? That they were going to basically unleash all the evidence, all the bulk data, everything, to do what? So where was she going to get? See, she didn't want their sources, their team sources and methods revealed. They didn't want to expose themselves, is what she said. Okay? So remember I read off the 18 organizations? The intelligence community's organizations. Remember I read those off the other night? Remember General Flynn was director of Defense Intelligence Agency, correct? This goes down even further. That operation to overthrow President Trump was a military operation led by General Milley, in part. It went down to the SecDef. Remember the one Secretary of Defense that Trump had to fire? Remember him? They were all working in unison with that administration. Remember, there's bad apples everywhere. I'm not talking about the men and women out there
risking their lives every day for national defense or national security and helping save everyone else's life or keep us all safe. I'm not talking about them whatsoever, no matter where they are. We're talking about the people that were offered deals they couldn't refuse. Money in terms that we can't even really understand it. Mansions, houses, honeypots, you name it. Government contracts in the billions of dollars, you name it. So their livelihoods are in jeopardy now because they're being exposed little by little. They're starting from the very beginning, the Russia deal, right? Remember, you had people that was in the White House. Remember General Kelly? I'm not saying he did anything wrong. Remember, everyone's presumed to be innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. All of them. And you're not going to be able to have any type of determination in Washington, D.C. There's not going to be a fair jury. They're going to basically plead the fifth, and all of D.C. will go in behind them, these people, to protect them. Because if they don't, they all possibly go down with them. Remember, General Milley ordered the other Joint Chiefs. Remember, he's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the other department heads, the other branches, right? To report to him if President Trump was going to put any military boots on the ground in the United States. And he would decide whether that was a lawful order. He would then later decide. That's what we had a big problem with on J6. Donald Trump already authorized 10,000 National Guard troops to work with the Capitol Police Chief, Stephen's son, to properly secure the Capitol based on intel threats that they all knew, to include Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, all those players, right? All those politicians. They all knew it. And what type of National Guard was going to be deployed? Riot control troops. We got the evidence. It's already out there in the public domain. Don't blame RH. You should have tidied up. You should have tidied up your administration a little bit better. You should have probably have more burn barrel parties. I don't recommend it. Yeah. So that was a broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our duly elected government. Remember, President Trump leads the executive branch of government. He's the leader of the free world. We call the free world, not the other type of countries. Because they're not free there. They can't even go out there and speak like RH does. And it's getting that bad here too as well. They're still out there covertly censoring people and taking them down one way, shape, or form or the other. And it's only going to get worse. And they got the weapons at their disposal. Has anybody been noticing, especially if you live in Florida, unnatural type lightning, thunder, storms, unnatural? I'm pretty sure if you've been here, been around longer than RH, that you can basically attest to. Now that's, I always thought that I never heard that type of lightning before. We just had a lightning strike that took down a huge, like a 400-year-old oak tree, and split the oak tree in half, right down to the trunk. At the same time, or that strike, whatever it was, blew up the Wi-Fi boxes in the clubhouse. The same time, people's capacitors of their air conditioner were like blowing up. A huge explosion, like a bomb had been set off. Those are pretty good warnings if it was a warning. Hey, hat tip to you. Those warners out there, thank God nobody was killed. Just kind of, the Wi-Fi boxes wasn't in the tree trunk, right? The Wi-Fi boxes wasn't in all the air conditioner capacitors, whatever you call them. And I didn't see nobody with red leotards and a pitchfork and some horns appear after that lightning strike. So it couldn't be that. And I'm referencing respectfully now a Bible verse, not disrespectfully. Actually, a news company go, oh, you don't want to be sitting underneath an oak tree in a storm. Yeah, there was a bench there that was there right by the tree, totally demolished. And this is the first time I've really seen this lightning strike a tree in Florida, and a long, like orange streak, like about 20 feet long, orange streak goes right down the trunk. I mean, that might be normal, but I would think there would be a burn mark. You know what I mean? I think there'd be a fire. There was no fire. My grandmother was telling us that when we were children or kids, that lightning struck a tree, a cypress tree, and there's a huge ball of fire that flew out from that. But that was back in, I think, the 60s or something like that, when she saw that happen. Like a whole ball of fire flying across the lake after that cypress tree was hit. Sound like more like what I'm talking about happened Tuesday. Basically was more like a very more precise type of weapon, but I don't know. I could just be, it's just, I understand they cause damage, but yeah, you see all the those IP, trucks showing up, and everybody was having to replace their boxes, whatever, so they can get the news. Nothing but the news, right? Man, I kind of nothing but the news. I think that's Nana, right? Used to watch her. Pretty cool. Yeah, and give Nino Rodriguez over there in Texas a hat tip. Yeah, thank you for all y'all do over there, and yeah, I listen in, and like I said before, I shouldn't even say that. No, I think they're doing a great job, and hey, that's the American way. It's it's a what do you call it? A legitimate way to, earn income. And hey, that's the American way. It's legitimate. It's honest. It's honest income. I mean, you got a lot of people out there with different opinions, and everybody, even if there's somebody you totally disagree with, that person, you have to have something in common with that person, right? Like, even if, like, you're talking about somebody possessed with the devil and that they're a great liar, you could say, man, you're the best. You're probably one of the best liars I've ever heard speak and, speak before. You're the best liar. You're the best at your job, man. That disinformation, your diversions and all this stuff, right? You're the best of everyone I've ever heard. Some people, it comes naturally to lie. But anyways, so now I want to basically quote this article, U.S. nuclear weapons transferred to UK soil for first time over 15 years. And they go on later to basically expand on that, was since 2008. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to read this source reference I've read before. Okay, now remember how it makes it military. If you basically set up holding stations and those are bases and military is involved, the SecDef is involved. Okay, the former administrations, we're talking about 44 and 46, right? The 3 terms, the Biden 3 terms, okay? So remember, you involve the military, then it becomes, okay, that becomes military tribunal time. So you got 4-star and generals involved, that kind of thing. And they fire all the combat hardened generals and basically replace them with a DEI and all those people that are fully on the same sheet of the music. They have no problem whatsoever. And basically providing transportation into these districts. Remember, started with Acorn. CNN just put out an article, putting together thousands of fraudulent registrations. Then it morphed into organizing for action. They put together basically about 30,000 foot soldiers on the streets of our country when they're called. And you saw all the operations, the Summer of Love operations, all the operations. And you have to tie in Antifa to Intifada. Tie in Antifa to Antifada. And understand that's a communist Marxist socialist organization. And you'll start to get a bigger picture. Who's behind it? So you have to go. Okay, now let me go real quick. Get down to the members. See, they protected their sources and methods because they were behind the broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our duly elected government before it ever got in office on January 20th of 2017. They were going to falsely imprison President Trump. But they thought through the fraudulent impeachments and basically accusing President Trump of treason, they were going to remove him per the Constitution. I don't know if it's the 25th Amendment or whatever they're going to do to President Trump, but they were going to remove him. First, their plan was to falsely imprison him, right? And if the whole IC was basically on the same boat with the Russia stuff, which they basically created to take over all the investigations of what? Remember? The trip to Novaya Goriova, providing the uranium. And remember, and I believe that uranium was being sent to, a lot of that uranium was being sent to Iran. That's my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. And again, remember, anybody I mentioned tonight in this live stream, everyone's presumed to be innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. These are just my opinions. I'm not accusing somebody of doing something directly, but listen to their own words. Listen to what they've actually done. We judge a character by his or her actions, right? Not by their skin color. Remember, they falsely indicted Trump, not like I think it's over 90 times. They falsely indicted President Trump over 90 times. You had men and women in uniform helping to put out that PSYOPs propaganda disinformation. Okay, so who am I talking about? This is pretty broad. Offices of Naval Intelligence. I'm not saying all these leaders or these people in these working in these covert teams to overthrow our president. There were people out there in uniform that were directly behind this. Coast Guard Intelligence, Bureau of Intelligence and Research, Central Intelligence Agency, National Air and Space Intelligence Center, National Security Agency. Okay. Now, I want y'all to go in and check out a CBS article. U.S. launched more than 24 cyber operations to protect election, top official says. I want y'all to go in there and listen to General Paul Nagasoni's read his own quotes. He led basically the National Security Agency, and we're talking about for the Hunt Forward operations, right? Hindsight perfect vision year. Okay. He was the commander for U.S. Cyber Command, and he was the director of National Security Agency. Okay. So go down there whenever it says that we could not. It's not that we could not connect all the dots. We cannot see all the dots. Okay, now I want y'all to put this together. We cannot see all the dots. If the foreign adversarial countries come in and take over our infrastructure, okay, that's a key word. I want to direct y'all back to J6, the first congressional session when Adam Swalwell was the chairman. I want you to listen to, and I've shared this multiple times, the congressional clerk, what he unsealed, the classified document that came from President Trump and his White House counsel that went to the U.S. Congress to be read into record. You have to listen to that. Now, you put this together. Remember, he said it's not that we can't connect all the dots, it's we can't see all the dots. He told the committee that National Security Agency and Cyber Command, I've got to get rid of all these pop-ups. It's crazy, right? Like a barrage damming. He told the committee that this is a Senate subcommittee, I believe. He told the committee that the National Security Agency and U.S. Cyber Command, which are authorized to operate outside of the U.S. to track and counter foreign threats, were limited by U.S. laws and policies and what they could see domestically. Wait a minute. I thought they were protecting our airspace, our cyberspace from attacks. Like through the carders when they insert the ether cards, and those ether cards are connected to what? Da Vinci? The satellites? Leonardo, whatever? Satellites? Remember? Remember Echelon? Remember the members of Echelon? It's not the fact that we cannot connect the dots. We can't see all the dots, Nagasone said. Adversaries understand that they can come into the United States, especially if you allow open borders, and along with open borders, a foreign military and terrorist insurgency into our country. Of course, we can't see all the dots, Nagasone said. Adversaries understand that they can come into the United States, use our infrastructure, and there's a blind spot for us not being able to see them. The blind spot was created by lawfare, so they couldn't do their job of national defense or national security. Okay? You're starting to get a bigger picture now, right? A bigger picture that you're not getting anywhere else. Tying it all together to start to tie in the loose strings. Okay, remember? Remember, again, going back to Dr. Evelyn Farkas's own statement, public statements about how they were releasing that bulk data. You know, when you go in and you insert bulk data, you also have, if you got the administrative privileges, which they had, you can insert lies, fictitious stuff, and you can take away the truth, right? You can insert, omit, insert, and omit. Whatever you want. Just like when they set up a crime scene at Mar-a-Lago. Just like they set up J6. Plan A, make sure they don't approve Trump's boots on the ground to secure the Capitol based on the intel threat they all had, the threats they all had. And if that doesn't work and they actually approve those boots on the ground and they're not delayed, they had the pipe bomber. They're going to call in a bomb scare. Somebody disprove that theory. Please, it's a theory. It's just an allegation. Prove it. Prove it that it's not credible. Why haven't you seen the pipe bomber yet being exposed? Because it tells you why. They don't want to expose themselves. Sources and methods. You see, when they're running a science operation that they basically, DARPA developed to run against ISIS, a terrorist organization. You turned that around and you started using that on the American people. Okay. General Stanley McChrystal, from my understanding, he was in charge of that operation. Oh, I thought he was against Barack Obama. What? You know, you got the good cop and bad cop games. You know they play. Okay, you're gonna play the good cop tonight. I'm gonna play the bad cop. Tomorrow you're gonna have to play the, bad cop. Okay, and I'm gonna play the good cop. That's the way it works. So they talk about solar winds and Microsoft Exchange intrusions. They just don't notify me that I need to prove my mic, authorize my mic to be open mic on my YouTube app. They almost clicked on it and clicked yes, gave them permission. So they're using our apps. They're using our own microphones. Those of us that are conducting live streams, they're already listening to all your conversations through the app if they want to. If they go, he's not, he's only got one person listening to him. Don't worry about it. We'll set up another. We'll plant something else in his file that we created, make him look like he's a wacko, right? Like one of those David Davidian type people. You know, he's a Christian, right? He hears voices. Yeah, right. They got those people. Some of those people that fall for that stuff, they got a long way to go. They need a whole lot more experience. Yeah, and I'm not saying all these people involved are just remember all those people running against President Trump, and remember how it got into the it really is kind of really muckraking. I mean, it got pretty bad, right? Remember Rand Paul, Chris Christie? I'm not saying Ben Carson, but he was running for president as well. Yeah, Marco Rubio. Remember all those exchanges? Ted Cruz and, you know, President Trump bragging about his wife and, you know, saying, making some remarks about Ted Cruz's wife. And, you know, those people hated him. And some of them still deep down inside, because they thought they were going to be president. You even had Jeb Bush, remember? He's kind of like fell off the radar, right? Go calm silent. You know, when things get heated, you just go calm silent, right? Conduct blackout operations, I guess. So if you take this CBS article, right? U.S. launched more than 24 cyber operations to protect election, top official says. But if you, this was dated March 25th, 2021. This is CBS News, okay? The title of the article, read it for yourself, but you got to read all the information. And I do believe that General Nagasone was basically trying to tell us something. That's what I believe. You know, we got some really great veterans out there, men and women that served our country, really, really top notch and very, very, very intelligent. Can't have too much intelligence, right? Though, because it can expose the puppet masters. So it's not the fact that we cannot connect the dots. We can't see all of the dots, Nagasone said. Adversaries understand that they can come into the United States, use our infrastructure. Okay, J6, first congressional session, they already knew it. And President Trump warned everybody. You know, when he released, they got the sealed document. I think it was 5:05 a.m. It was either 5:05 p.m. or 5:05 a.m. What does the 5 look like? Looks like an S, right? I don't know. This could be just a coincidence, but word association, I get into symbols and stuff like that to try to figure out if there's any, like Carter. What does a Carter do? This is a guy that works on computers, right? IT, whatever, and he'll insert like an Ethernet card and get they're not connected, right? And all the lies, and that's already been disproven. We don't need to go through all this stuff again. I don't have time to go through and basically debunk all their lies. You know, it would take forever. We just want to put out the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. And if I make a mistake, please somebody share the correct information in the comment section, and I will make the necessary corrections. Okay, now what was the other? Okay, hold on a second. So remember, sources and methods they're talking about, so they can plan information and they can extract information as far as the bulk data collection goes. U.S. Army intelligence, right? Marine Corps intelligence. And see, a lot of these people could have been working, and they're being so compartmentalized. One team member might actually be compartmentalized, and another area can only had to need to know or to see certain information, and a guy right on or lady on the same team could see that same information one of his team members were seeing or her team members were seeing. So this stuff, these operations are highly compartmentalized. Sometimes they run sim over operations over live operations. That's why we call it sim over live. Okay? Like on 9/11. There was a lot of operations going on 9/11. I won't get into all of that, but I could have been in the air defense operations room in Cheyenne Mountain on 9/11, but I was basically sent to another station. So my supervisor went there, and I went to another station. I always wanted to go there, but I couldn't go there. But there were sim operations, multiple simulated operations going on, and that's why somebody called it fog of war. And I disagree with that fog of war statement. Whenever you're running, because of safety, unless the simulated live operation involves live forces, then you got to shut that down and basically divert those aircraft to whatever, get them on the ground, and you got to get your birds up there right away. So, anyways, Abel Danger had information, I'm pretty sure. And there's even a lone gunman pilot series that basically aired, I think, in March of 2001 or April 2001. Go check that out. They were basically in that TV series, that program, that episode. They had they basically took over remotely from uninterrupted autopilot, and I think they put it like United Flight 23 on September 11, 2001. I do believe they accessed the electronic compartment through the hatch outside, and they crawled in there, and they hooked up the uninterruptible autopilot, so that plane was going to fly into I think the White House or maybe even the Capitol building. But they basically, the pilots turned that plane around and went back to the terminal, and they evacuated out the airport. So that's kind of really, really kind of interesting. And basically, we've been using like uninterrupted autopilot, like remote controlling, like drones going back into the 70s or maybe even the 60s to conduct live air exercises. A lot of those over the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, over the Atlantic Ocean, and restricted operation zones. So, anyways, Yeah, Boeing, and for people saying, "Oh, that's just a rumor," Boeing and Honeywell has a patent on those uninterrupted autopilot, and my concern is planes like that blue and white plane, and it's going to be a 747-8, I think it is, Boeing. So we need to make sure that they can't take over that aircraft, whatever. Because these people, remember, they're being exposed, and they're going to lose all their. They're going to basically. They're going to lose really bad, and they might be put in prison the rest of their lives, if not worse. Because you know what? We're talking about overthrowing, being part of the broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our U.S. government, and you put that plan into effect before our new government gets in office on January 20th of 2017. So, you know what I mean? It, man. So go check out the United States Intelligence Community. Okay, so anyways, there was another thing I needed to share real quick. Remember, they facilitated and directed an invasion into our country, which has caused hundreds of thousands of deaths from January 20th, 2021 to January 20th of 2025. But those activities happened after the Russia stuff, right? So if you go back to the very beginning, and they go, "Oh, it's only 5 years statute of limitation." Oh, this continues on to this day. Okay. All right, stand by. Now, I want to touch on this real quick. So the idea, in my opinion, where the idea originated from, basically illegally compensating or confiscating President Trump's presidential records as his own records. Go to this article, the Mother Jones article, Obama to Bush. I can release your records. Don't like it, sue. So why didn't George W. Bush take those records with him, right? Why was Obama able to compensate those records? So who was working with Obama to compensate George W. Bush's records, his presidential records? The very first day in office, that's what he did. During the campaign, Obama promised they're trying to give him to justify, right? Nullify attempts to make the timely release of presidential records more difficult. What? So he held up, and basically it was GSA contractors that went in and planted those boxes into Mar-a-Lago. Trump had gone through and reviewed all the. He's not a delivery person that like drives a box truck and you load up all the boxes with all that information. You drive it down to Mar-a-Lago, or put them on a military plane, whatever, and fly down to Palm Beach, whatever. How are you going to transport those documents? Right? He's not a file clerk that goes out there once he declassifies like Russia, and the Hillary Clinton email deal with no redactions. He's not the one that goes out there and stamps them all declassified on the date that they're declassified, right? Pack them up in the boxes and move them to Mar-a-Lago. That wasn't Trump. Trump was cooperating with the FBI, right? He had a secure facility. He has U.S. Secret Service protection. The FBI, the only problem they had with the information he had was the lock that they had on that facility. So they changed the lock, right? So if you basically order the people involved in that assault operation authorize the use of lethal force, you basically direct them to go in there in that operation and not wear any identifying clothing, like if you're from the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, or you're from the FBI. The FBI and the CIA, they got basically reversible jackets, right? So one side says CIA, one side says FBI, right? So anyways, let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning real quick, and I'm going to try to put this all together where you can understand it. And sometimes you have to go back to some of these live streams, including my own, and review them from the beginning and play them back and forth multiple times, especially if you're trying to put together yourself, and especially if you're in an official position. Okay? This takes a lot of legwork out. Now, you could just go right to the articles or right to the information yourself and see if you can put it together to help you paint the overall picture, right? To connect all the dots, or enough dots to connect more dots that you have, the receipts you have, the sauce that you have, however you want to define it, right? So anyways, now we know, going back to the operation, that basically Obama and his intel chief put together back on July 7th of 2007, not 2007, July 7th of 2009 is when Barack Obama traveled to Novogorod to meet with the Prime Minister, Vladimir Putin, with his intel chief, because it was going to be an intel operation, in my opinion, to basically transport uranium-1 to Russia, the uranium-1, the uranium from the uranium-1 deal to Russia, in my opinion, deliver it to Iran. So let's talk about people that was involved in the operation. Now, if you go look at Peter Strzok's, remember we talked about a certain chief of staff working for Obama, and she went on to work in that mansion in Washington, D.C. after Obama left this second term, and then became the Biden third term, right? But anyways, when you look at the gaps in times, when people are basically in college or whatever their background is, see, what was Peter Strzok's title? He was the Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division. Counterintelligence Division. Now, remember who also worked on the board of directors in Burisma International Holdings? Remember? Ukraine? Working with, I don't know, at the same time or whatever, working with Hunter Biden. It was Mitt Romney's former national security advisor during his 2012 run for president. The former CIA director of counterterrorism, Cofer Black. Okay, we're going to start to basically point these people. I'm not saying Cover for Black did anything wrong. I'm not saying. I'm just saying it's kind of like a coincidence, right? So it was an intel operation. Was Burisma a front group? I don't know. FTX a front group? I don't know. I'm just asking. So Peter Strzok's position, he was born March 7th, 1970. Well, let's go down his early life. Peter Paul Strzok was born near Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, to Peter Paul Strzok and Virginia Sue Harris. His father is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel who served in the Corps of Engineers during a 21-year military career. His father did 2 tours in Vietnam, 2 in Saudi Arabia, and 3 in Iran, where Strzok attended elementary school at the American School in Tehran prior to the Iranian Revolution. So remember, they put together a station, in my opinion, after they installed the mullahs, right? So they had people still there, working there, right? The mullahs didn't know who everyone was when they first took over in 1979. Let's go back and look at this again. And you look at the gap. So I do believe Peter Strzok worked for the intelligence community before he was basically moved over to the FBI. So anyways, yeah, you just look at the gaps of time that are absent. Whenever you're basically applying for a security clearance, you cannot have years and years of gaps between the last day or the year you were in college or month that you basically graduated. You know, if you change your address, you have to have addresses on there from your, they're going to get you, when they do your security clearance investigation, by the way, the FBI is responsible for security clearance investigations. They did. Who do you think was involved with President Trump's background investigation? And believe me, President Trump had the most thorough security background investigation, that special, what do you call it, SBI, special background investigation, than any man alive on planet Earth. They went back to his kindergarten years. They went all through his whole family trying to find dirt. And who do you think was doing it? Who do you think was putting in some of this bulk data stuff? Remember, Admiral Rogers already warned us. Devin Nunes, right? Already warned us. He warned President Trump, right? And that's what helped stop it in a way, because they would have been successful. So anyways, so they keep on going back. Flynn pled guilty to lying, right? Strzok rose to the rank of Deputy Assistant Director in the Counterterrorism Division and was the number 2 official within the Division of Investigations involving Russia. In that capacity, he led the FBI's investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 United States election and examined both the Steele dossier and the Russia role in the 2016 Democrat National Committee email leak. He oversaw the Bureau's interviews within National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. He oversaw, right? Flynn later pled guilty to lying during those interviews. Lying about what, right? That plea need to be removed. And they're basically saying that that Michael Flynn was discussing sanctions with the Russian ambassador to the United States, Kislyak, right? And General Flynn had to basically fire his legal defense and hire, I think, what's her name? I can't remember her name. They were calling her McCracken, Sidney Powell, right? And far as I understand, she can actually be part of military tribunals. So, anyways, I won't talk too much more about that. Anyway, so anyways, Sidney Powell, in my opinion, what she was basically getting the government to do is to release the actual audio recordings and not rely on a edited transcript from an audio recording. So I do believe they blocked that discovery and shut down going after Flynn, right? That's what saved them. Because, and, you had Judge Emmett Sullivan, they call him an Obama judge, right? Basically, he still wanted to take Flynn down, but and that got that edited transcript of the actual the real recorded oral transcript. Now, you think about this. Does anybody out there believe that the Russian ambassador to the United States, Kislyak, is going to call up General Flynn on his own and basically have a script of questions to ask General Flynn? Who do you think was working together there? Making these deals in the background to make sure Trump was never elected, because Russia did not want Donald Trump to win the elections in 2016. They already prepared for Hillary. That's all part of the psychological warfare operations turned on the American people. It's all a bull-faced lie. The fraudulent FISA court applications, the intelligence community assessment report, all this propaganda that they were running against Trump, that was all to basically justify Barack Obama's presidential findings that gave him the authority to conduct the unauthorized illegal surveillance of American citizens and basically anybody connected with President Trump or candidate Trump or President-elect Donald Trump. So they were spying on everyone. The spying was outsourced, right? Going from intelligence community to intelligence community operations, even overseas. We already know that now. So in my opinion, Vladimir Putin, because that was an intel, because they're going after the national security advisor, working with Trump, they could not have him there because of his background. Director of National Intelligence. And see, they didn't want General Flynn there because General Flynn could debunk to the president propaganda or just bull-faced lies, right, of the intel that they were giving President Trump. And remember, they keep on trying to provide damage control about those two briefings that they gave to President Trump and Hillary Clinton. Those were two different briefings. The political action group, they can deny, they can have all the plausible deniability, all they want. There's two teams working in the political action group within the Special Activities Center that were running the intel briefings, to one to Trump, candidate Trump, and one to candidate Hillary Clinton. So going back to General Flynn, there was two audio sources of that phone call. That's where they had to base. That's what they used to alter the oral transcripts. The oral transcripts were just transcripts put in regular words to brief who? Reince Priebus, the main one, Mike Pence. And they said Flynn lied to him, right? They said Flynn lied to him based off of an edited audio transcript to put into a briefing format. So that helped. See, they already authorized through the presidential finding covert operations to conduct illegal surveillance on Donald Trump, Trump's family members, and pretty much everybody out there associated with it. It was a joint operation. It was a joint civilian leaders in the intelligence community, the SecDef, or the Assistant Secretary of Defense, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. It went all the way down to the military operatives and special forces that were running these operations. They had to. And that was all authorized through because they put together all the information they need to back up Barack Obama, but they got caught. So again, Kislyak couldn't even go to the bathroom, especially dealing with intel and people like the National Security Advisor, General Flynn. I thought the Russians wanted Hillary Clinton to win. Then why did they help set up Flynn? Why did they help Barack Obama set up Flynn? Because of former operations that they did not want to have revealed. The Russia stuff is all based on lies to take over the investigation, to investigate Barack Obama and Michelle Obama when they're sleeping in the bed with the enemy in Moscow, Russia. And I don't know if they slept at that countryside mansion of Vladimir Putin's in Novo-Agariova, Russia. Okay? So it's all here. They set up the traps too. The obstruction traps. That's why they went off they started attacking Trump's children. That's why they went after Donald Trump Jr., saying he's directly colluding with Russians. They set it up. It was a Democrat operation. Or who are they getting the information from? They're getting the psyops, the wrap-up smears that they helped put out themselves to muddy up President Trump. I mean, anybody could see this operation. And what's very, very dangerous now is, remember, hundreds of thousands. If you just talk about the fentanyl deaths alone due to that border being wide open, the justification of holding these people accountable, you can basically arrest Mayorkas right now. I don't care if they voted for impeachment or not. You got the evidence. I thought they said the statute of limitation on federal crimes is 5 years. Are they going to get to it? I hope so. So it's all going to go, has to go in order. In order. And the more and more they're revealed, the more dangerous they get. That's why the worst of these worst people that are out there that actually got their fingerprints all over mass murder, Those are the ones you got to basically remove off our streets right away. Make it covertly, whatever you got to do, because this is a matter of national security. You did it to grandmothers or whatever, people just going in to take a tour on January 6th in the Capitol building after some of them were basically motioned to come in the Capitol after temporary barriers were moved aside. Oh, we were only motioning in other law enforcement, right? All in civilian clothing. So all of them were undercover wearing polo shirts, golf shorts and golf shirts, right? With no insignia, FBI, CIA, DHS, FBI, whatever. It's so obvious. Once you start putting these dots together, they start to fall in perfectly. At least as far as logically, in my opinion. Is any of this stuff unlogical? Illogical? Like they didn't want to take down Flynn because it was vital deterrent to their operations and he's directly connected to the military? There you go. There's your connection. They have to remain calm silent when they're in uniform. They're ordered. If you talk about this operation, you go to Fort Leavenworth. Long time, GI. Long time, GI. No conjugal visits from Fang Fang or nobody. You go to Fort Leavenworth, where you're going to spend the rest of your days. Strzok was considered one of the most experienced and trusted FBI counterintelligence investigators, as well as one of the Bureau's top experts on Russia, according to CNN. Trusted sources, right? Golly. Oh, man. On August 10th, 2018, under intense political pressure from Trump and Republicans in Congress following the IG report, FBI Director David Bowditch fired Strzok. Wow. It's because they only fired him because Hillary Clinton didn't win 100 million to one. The only votes Donald Trump was going to get was his own vote. And his insurance policy didn't work. Oh, they were still working on his insurance policy, by the way. And he sued him. He got to go, and he sued him, and he won the lawsuit, right? He was non-biased. Trump called Trump an idiot in August 2015 and texted, God, Hillary should win. Man, I can't even count. 100 million to zero. No, even he's saying, Strzok saying, Trump isn't even going to vote for himself. That's how big of a landslide it will be after a Republican debate. Yeah, I guess if you got your thumb on the scale on every operation that was out there at the time to ensure you got the presidential finding to do the illegal surveillance, even on Melania Trump's drawer, I guess, you're going to think, and you take over, remember those devices? Remember when they unsealed that document? Wait till they figure out. See, there was two audio recordings in my opinion, it was a joint operation. Now, if you source another echelon organization to basically work with Russia, hey, listen, you got to get Kislyak to call up General Flynn. Hey, he's going to be in the Dominican Republic, so we can't actually record him if he was here in the United States, right? Oh, yes, they could, because they already had the fraudulent Intelligence Committee assessment report. They already had the fraudulent FISA court applications. They had everything. The janitor working in Trump Towers in New York, right? The janitor, he basically he cleaned a Russian oligarch's room. He cleaned the people went in there and they cleaned the sheets. They're colluded with Russia. And get all these Russians, right? Put out indictments knowing that they will never go to court. But there was one, I think that one of those organizations that they indicted, they actually showed up at court. What did the government do at the time? They didn't allow discovery. They shut it down. They wouldn't allow exculpatory information. They had to shut it down before exculpatory evidence was brought forward or discovery. They didn't care. They just basically attached anybody they wanted to. They could have been, yeah, they could have, they paid for an emoji, right? And even they got so crazy with their stupid PSYOPs operation of propaganda, they were trying to tell MAGA people we were colluded with Russia to vote for Trump. We're guilty too. And like Papadopoulos. Still some questions out on Carter Page. He wasn't arrested, right? Guess they couldn't allow discovery on that one or exculpatory information. Wouldn't help out their pursuit of their broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our government. See, they're blaming the FBI open up Clinton's email investigation on the eve of the election. That's the reason why Hillary Clinton lost. And Trump got away with the Russia stuff. They went in there, they purged all the evidence on themselves going all the way back to July 7th of 2009 when Barack Obama, remember after the Russian reset, remember Hillary Clinton was a vital part of that? And it looks like they were running a shadow government through a certain foundation. At least that's what I believe is in that book called Clinton Cash. Prove me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I mean, I didn't write the book. Strzok explained that a will stop Trump text message was written late at night and off the cuff shortly after Trump denigrated the immigrant family of a fallen American war hero. Genghis Khan, Ghazala Khan, and Khizr, I don't even know. And that the message reflected Strzok's belief that Americans would not vote for a candidate who engaged in such horrible, disgusting behavior. Yeah, he wasn't biased. Strzok wasn't biased whatsoever. Okay, Steve. Good night. Appreciate it. So, anyways, I don't have to go back and go through this whole thing, but believe me, remember probably right from the communication room or that compartmentalized team working for the political action group, working with Putin's people. They set up that phone call with Flynn, and they were working. Remember, Obama administration during 44's administration, they were including Russia with Russia lawfully every hour on the hour through the deconfliction zone uh, uh, communication room in the White House, right? So they probably just gave those people there, the analysts and all that stuff, that monitor those communication rooms and military people, whatever. Here, go take a break. We're taking over. So Brennan and Obama, they go in there and take over. And they basically instruct, hey Vlad, we need your help here. We need your help. Don't worry, we'll send over some cash to you all. Okay, don't worry. Okay. Oh, you're doing what over there in Syria? Okay, fine. Whatever. Okay. Okay, we'll give you safe haven for those operations. Okay. We need you to ask General Flynn, listen, we can't have this guy as Trump's national security advisor because he knows about our joint operations, like the Northern Alliance joint operations, and yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree, comrade Barack. Yeah, please call me Barry, Vlad. Mac. Yeah, Vlad's all right, right? Yeah, Barry. We go way back. Oh, Barry, fine. Okay, so yeah, I'll instruct Kislyak call up Flynn while he's on vacation in the Dominican Republic, and we'll get him to talk about the sanctions. You know what I mean? Oh, there's an oral audio recording. Not only, in my opinion, the CIA had one, the what do you call the KGB now, working for Putin? They have theirs too. Because remember, it was their man Kislyak that called General Flynn when he's on vacation in the Dominican Republic. Everything I said is that doesn't compute, RH. It doesn't sound, you don't know what you're talking about. That's just another conspiracy theory. Listen, it's amazing how they go through all this and doctor it up and make him look like he's such a hero. A December 2019 report by the Justice Department, Inspector General acknowledged the text message from Strzok about stopping Trump, but said Strzok's actions were not taken because of bias, right? And he did not have undue influence in launching the FBI investigation of Russia meddling in the 2016 election. No bias at all. Wrong. Golly. In 2018, President Trump falsely claimed that 19,000 text messages between Strzok and Page were purposely and illegally deleted, and that these text messages would have explained the whole hoax. PolitiFact. Oh, there's their pants on fire false statement. Golly. It's crazy. Look at how many people are involved in this were bought off. In an August 15, 2016 text message, Strzok told Page, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andrew McCabe, Deputy Director of the FBI office, that there's no way Trump gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. See, there has to be a death there, right? There's an unlikely event you die before you're 40. That's a insurance policy, right? It's like likened to an insurance policy, because if Trump gets basically in office, he's going to expose all of you. Oh, there's no political bias at all. So that just totally destroyed the IG. Guess that was Durham, right? I don't want to even go through this anymore. It's so sickening. So basically, we got enough information, right? Make sure we're still live on Rumble. So just like they doctored the Russia FISA court, nobody's been held accountable for that either. You lied to a FISA court. And now I'm pretty sure they knew that was a lie too, because it was ridiculous. You know what I mean? But you got the presidential finding. We got a presidential finding here. Trump's a Russian asset. Donald Trump Jr. too, right? According to them and their lies. I mean, almost every time they open their mouth is a lie. So now we're going to try to put the rest of this together. I mean, Barack Obama's always thought that Israel is an occupier of the country of Palestine, right? There's never, ever a kingdom of Palestine. There was never, ever a king of Palestine. It was the Philistines. Like, remember Goliath in Gaza? The Filistinos? Philistia? That's a Rome construct. A Roman construct to disparage Israelis back in the day. Remember the joint kingdom? Joint kingdom, Israel and Judah? Okay, so anyways, and this is what really, if you go back to that video on that I shared over on True Social, you have to watch that video. This is how close we came. Remember, after the pledge to basically lead a ground invasion into Israel, remember in the 80s, the Muslim Brotherhood, far as I understand, Mike Bravo organization, they basically founded Hamas. Go back and look at the rally. Those were Hamas people out there in that rally, where they had about 300,000 or 400,000. They were planning on leading a ground invasion into Israel and basically, pop out the eyes of all Jews. And they made that chant, right? even innocent people, even there's Arabs that live in Israel too. There's Hebrew speaking. What's the language of Abraham? Abram. They're talking about their own descendants. Let's go here. I'm going to prove it real quick and bear with me. And I'm not ashamed to read this scripture either, because it's pertinent for us to understand the history. Okay, this is Genesis chapter 14, beginning with verse 12. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And verse 13 starts a new paragraph, a new idea. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, and these were confederates with Abram. And when Abram heard, remember, Abram the Hebrew, heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house 318 and pursued them into Dan. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dell. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be that be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thine hand. And he gave him tithes of all. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread, even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich, save only that which these young men have eaten, and the portion of the men that went with me, Aner, Eshcol, Mamre, let them take their portions. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. So back here in Genesis chapter 14, remember this is before Moses' time, right? And there came one that had escaped and told Abram, that's before he's blessed, and God gave him the name Abraham, blessed by the Most High, our Most High God, right? Abram the Hebrew. So what language did Abraham speak? Did he speak Aramaic, or did he speak Hebrew? Now, for those that have been educated enough, I go all the way back to word pictures, even letters. Each letter has a picture assigned to it, because each letter is actually, it represents something, and it represents a picture you can draw. Even Tav, the symbol Tav, T-A-V, it's like a T. That's a sign. A graven image. It's always been a graven image sign. That's where it comes from. You know, our brothers of Ishmael and Isaac both were blessed by God. I'm not going to take that argument up to God. I'm not going to take any arguments up to God. I worship God. Unless He directs me. So, see right there? Oh, he's crazy. He's hearing voices, right? Well, I hope you're blessed with faith one day yourself, or one night, or one early morning. You're blessed with God, faith yourself. Oh, Yeshua didn't read. He didn't read Hebrew. He went into the synagogues as customarily to read from the ancient manuscripts. What scripts do you think was Yeshua, our true Messiah? What do you think he was reading from? The ancient Hebrew manuscripts. Reading word per word. Now I'm going to say the word of God. He doesn't even know Hebrew. What were the two tribes that were not lost? And the scribes, what were they to do? When they made copies, they had to make sure not even one jot or tittle was wrong when they made copies, right? In the Hebrew language. They call the 5 books of Moses, right? Oh, RH. What are we gonna do now? Just totally discount all of the whole Bible? The book of the people? Okay, and I'm gonna basically go in and talk about something else too as well. Real quick, because it's very important. At least it is for me. I wish it was important for other men and women of faith. God warned us before. Now this is Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 15. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me, unto him ye shall hearken. According to all that thou desirest of the Lord thy God in Horeb, in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see his great fire any more, that I die not. And the Lord said unto me, they have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, like unto Moses, and will put my words in his mouth. He's not just making stuff up as he goes along, right? And he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, lowercase g, even that prophet shall die. And if thou say in thine heart, how shall we know the word which the Lord hath not spoken? When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken, but the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously. Thou shalt not be afraid of him. Okay, remember, the Torah is considered the 5 books of Moses. It starts out with the book of Genesis, goes to the book of Exodus, right? Goes to the book of, hold on a second, Leviticus, and it goes to the book of Numbers, and it goes to the book of Deuteronomy. Those are all 5 of those books are called the Book of Moses, and was written in meticulous detail that not even a jot or tittle. Where am I getting the jot and tittle stuff from? That they were written in Hebrew, the language of Abram, who was blessed to become Abraham. And his descendants, remember, were blessed. Both Ishmael and Isaac, not just Isaac, they were both blessed. That's the point we should be making. And I think to understand that point would help us understand no one should be out there murdering innocent people. Okay. Now, not one jot or tittle could go away from the law, right? Remember that? The scepter shall never part between the feet of Judah. The law, written in the Hebrew manuscripts from the very beginning. Okay. This is Matthew chapter 5, verse 17, which starts a new paragraph, a new idea. Think not, this is Yeshua, our Messiah, the true Messiah. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Whosoever there shall break one of these least commandments, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So, in God we trust, right? In God we trust. Everyone else trust but verify. So, let's see here. Again, nuclear standoff, non-proliferation, and national democratic redistricting. Okay, I talked about it. they used the invasion for their redistricting pursuits to take over total control. The founders of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee is Barack Obama and Eric Holder. The founders of the Organizing for Action, which put together for them a 30,000 foot soldiers, that was put together by Barack Obama and Eric Holder. And okay, so this is all starting with Acorn. All right, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And that's the reason why they had the invasion for 4 years. Because in 2022, they lost the midterms. And well, basically, they already started doing that because they probably already knew from insider polling that the conservative Republicans took over the popular majority. You know what I mean? And they were preparing for it. So they had to gerrymander the districts. And that's the reason why they had the open borders for their own personal interests of power or remaining in power and for money, right? That's the reason. They allowed hundreds of thousands of Americans to be killed. And so that open border, which included the invasion, included a foreign military and terrorist insurgency into our country. They knew it. They were briefed. They did it anyways. Those statute of limitations hasn't ran out, by the way. And that all plays a part. Okay, so the nuclear standoff, they're saying that, and I'm going to talk about this again real quick. It's 2:06 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and thank you for those that are sticking with this channel. Okay. Now, they just said that, now this is from Tyler Durden, U.S. Nuclear, and I'm basically going back and reading a source reference that was over there on Nino's channel, Nino Rodriguez. Okay, I viewed that live stream. I view quite a few of those live streams, and thank you, Nino. You don't know me. I know you don't have to support this channel. That's fine. Whatever. I'm subscribed to that channel and others. Okay, so they're sharing this information. There's about to be a nuclear standoff, and basically these people are I gotta remember that term. Anyways, U.S. nuclear weapons transferred to the U.K. soil for the first time over 15 years. That's from Tyler Durden. And let's see here. I'm going to say they were basically trying to say that the last time that they delivered nuclear weapons to UK was in 2008. But they didn't. They brought those nuclear weapons back. See, I think there's somebody trying to put out damage control for them and their operations, maybe. I don't know. But let me read you the facts of the Biden administration, including Hillary Clinton, that they were for nukes for NATO. Okay, let's just read the Air Forces magazine. This is from airandspaceforces.com. Okay, nukes for NATO from Air and Space Forces magazine. Now, when a magazine, the publishers or whatever, people that own that magazine, sometimes they have to get clearance for some of this information because some of it looks pretty sensitive. Now, this is July data. This is by Rebecca Grant, July 1st, 2010. For more than 60 years, nuclear armed forces have been a key part of U.S. deterrence calculus, particularly in Europe. Indeed, providing the umbrella of an extended deterrence to NATO nations has been a mission performed by generations of USAFE, United States Air Force air crews, maintainers, and security forces. It now appears that before long, the iconic nuclear fighter role performed in recent years by the F-15E and F-16 will pass to a new heavyweight, the F-35 Lightning II. As the Obama administration sees it, nuclear weapons delivered by fighters will continue to play an important role in the nation's internal affairs. The 2010 Nuclear Posture Review, released in April, reaffirmed the requirement for tactical nuclear weapons in U.S. defense strategy. The United States, it said, will retain capability to forward deploy U.S. nuclear weapons on tactical fighter bombers and proceed with full scope life extension for the B-61 bomb, including enhancing safety, security, and use control. The Air Force, the NPR made clear, will retain a dual capable fighter. As it replaces F-16s with the F-35. Hold on a second, I got to jot something down. Okay. The Air Force, the NPR made clear, will retain a dual capable fighter as it replaces F-16s with F-35. The NPR also announced final retirement of the nuclear capable Tomahawk missile, a theater range nuke. The Army long ago eliminated its theater nuclear missiles. Thus, USAFE will do all of Washington's heavy lifting for extended tactical deterrence. Several NATO countries have the technical capability to deliver U.S. nuclear warheads with nuclear certified fighters. Each munition storage site, some were completed as recently as 1998, can securely house a score or more of warheads in NATO's central and southern regions. NATO members Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Norway formally requested that the alliance discuss potential withdrawal of U.S. weapons from the continent as the alliance reviews its strategic concept. Other nations, include several former under Soviet dominion, disagree. Including several formerly under Soviet dominion, disagree. Now, which ones are those? Probably, let's see, Romania, Poland, and probably and Ukraine, right? They say such weapons are critical symbols of the U.S. military commitment to Europe. Now, Zelensky was calling for, before the Russian military invasion into Ukraine, I'll just call it invasion, right? So I won't go down the whole list of possible reasons why they started that special military operation inside Ukraine. But one of them has to do with pathogens, and that's as far as I'll go with that. They say such weapons are critical symbols of the U.S. military commitment to Europe. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton rebuffed the call. Remember, this is the Biden administration, first term with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. That was their foreign policy. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton rebuffed the call. First, she said, we should recognize that as long as nuclear weapons exist, NATO will remain a nuclear alliance. In short, the policy of extended deterrence is alive and well, but meeting the NPR's guidance over the long run will hinge on success with the F-35 and the B-61 bomb refurbishment. The Air Force has a long and successful track record with extended deterrence. In fact, fighters carrying tactical nuclear weapons have been around nearly as long as NATO itself. Okay. Now, I want to quote the Obama administration. Now, you have to go check out this article again, Nukes for NATO, Air and Space Forces magazine. Okay, hold on a second. Now, as far as I know, that they basically converted the Aegis naval platform to a ground platform nuclear warhead capable missile system, and they basically mobilized those nuclear Aegis ground nuclear warhead missile systems into both Romania and Poland. Okay, Romania and Poland. Okay, now when you go into Nukes for NATO for that article, you go down to the third paragraph. As the Obama administration sees it, nuclear weapons delivered by fighters will continue to play an important role in the nation's international affairs. The 2010 Nuclear Posture Review released in April reaffirmed the requirement for tactical nuclear weapons in U.S. defense strategy. Okay. And then again, you got the statement that Hillary Clinton made. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton rebuffed the call about nukes for NATO, right? First, she said, we should recognize that as long as nuclear weapons exist, NATO will remain a nuclear alliance. Okay. So whether we agree with that or not, that's what happened. So you can't say these nuclear weapons when it says nukes for NATO, right? And they expanded the former Soviet Union bloc countries into that fold, that they now have at their disposal nuclear weapon systems, right, in their countries. You can't say, okay, well, that only happened during the Bush administration, and totally omit the operations being conducted by the Obama administration. And how can you basically dismiss the fact that they allowed Russia to gain 20% of U.S. uranium, right? And we do believe in a covert operation, they delivered that uranium to Russia, and Russia in hand delivered some uranium into Iran for their nuclear weapons program. That was all began under Barack Obama administration, because in my opinion, they were going to ensure that Iran had nuclear weapons, because Israel had them. Remember, they don't even recognize Israel's right to exist as a independent sovereign country. They don't even recognize that right for them to exist. So, anyways, we served, when those of us that served under President Reagan, we supported the nuclear non-proliferation treaties. This was stuff that wasn't supposed to start spreading like wildfire. And we're talking about the little suitcases too. These people was never supposed to get these weapons. Why? Because they could be trusted. Because they can't be trusted. And if you got a leader of Ukraine, after we sent them over billions and billions of dollars, calling for a preemptive nuclear strike on Russia, what do you think is going to happen? Just use your imagination. Let's go back to what they called mutually assured destruction. That's mutually assured fools to go that. And they think, see, they're such control freaks. They think that they can control every nuclear armed country around the world. Remember the Cuban Missile Crisis? Remember one of the beefs of Nikita Khrushchev, the Ukrainian. He was born in Ukraine, okay? You could call him a Russian citizen if you want to. He was born in Ukraine. He died September 11th, 1971. Now, whether that's just a coincidence or not. So we had, back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had nuclear weapon system, intermediate range. I think they're intermediate range Jupiter nuclear warhead missile systems in Turkey pointed at Russia. And thank God for John F. Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy, working behind the scenes. And they used that in part to basically, you know what, on November 22nd of 1963. Okay, so this is serious stuff. You got some totally unhinged people out there. And there's some countries out there, remember, some countries are basically sitting on the sidelines and go, wow, if we can get United States and Russia at each other, we could just sit back and watch as two birds are destroyed with one stone, right? Two birds are destroyed with one stone. And they're going to come in and clean up everything, right? And then they'll have their new world disorder. They'll have their little appointed kings and queens, right? I thought they didn't want kings. No kings is what they're fighting for. No kings. Well, I guess they're talking about the king of all kings too. Yes, you are our true Messiah. Okay. Oh, they're just flexing their muscles. Just flexing their muscles. That's all they're doing. You know, kind of like use your common sense. If we're providing nuclear weapon arsenals to other NATO countries, like now I heard that from a pretty valid source. I think he was an advisor to President Trump. I won't mention his name. He didn't ask me. He didn't allow me to use his name, so I won't do it. But I watched him on Redacted many times. He's invited on the show called Redacted, Clayton and Natalie Moore's show. Okay. So, anyways, that's the information I got. Where I got the information about converting the naval platform at Aegis nuclear missile systems to a ground-based nuclear missile system. Wow. And of course, reciprocating, I guess you call it the word, action and reaction. So then you have Russia moving in mobile nuclear weapon systems into Belarus, right? And it starts to get worse and worse. And nobody out there trying to shut this stuff down, except for President Trump and a few handful of people. I think Marco Rubio is smart enough to understand why we fought for non-nuclear proliferation, and we fight to keep those treaties intact. Personally, I believe you don't even need nuclear weapons anymore because there's so many other weapons, stuff that's even off the books still that we don't even know about. All kinds of little, you know what I mean? So, yeah, we removed President Kennedy removed the Jupiter nuclear weapon systems from Turkey pointed at Russia. They removed their intermediate range nuclear ballistic missile mobile launchers out of Cuba. And President Kennedy basically helped, thank God, staving off a nuclear holocaust, because it was really, really, and I don't believe in this stuff. We need a scare event to wake up 82.5 whatever percent of people. We got to do what's right at all times. And if you don't hold these people accountable, right, and you continue to allow these, especially mass murderers out roaming free on our streets of America, how are you going to stop it? Extortion, right? They're going to extort, basically threaten the lives of family members, threaten lives and people in our government, high level places. You don't do this or you don't do that. You know what I mean? That's why I'm wondering why they named that Special Forces operation, that Chinook Extortion 17. Why they named it extortion? Okay, so I call it mutually assured fools. I even hear people talking about surviving. We were trained in, maintaining our operations in a biological, nuclear, and chemical warfare, NBC, right? In the NBC environment, we had to don the whole mock gear and all that stuff. But the type of weapons we're talking about here now, and we're talking megatons of power. The two ones that they dropped, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the fission process wasn't as effective, which means only 5% or something like that of the fission material actually activated or whatever. I'm not a what do you call that? Nuclear weapon systems expert or whatever, but the fission process wasn't efficient, where it was the total amount of TNT destruction couldn't be utilized because of those were the first warheads they made, right? They created. So some people can say I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've read enough stuff to understand those two warheads dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not very efficient. They were very lower, maybe 5 kilotons of destructive power. It was like a tactical nuclear weapon burst, right? Explosion, whatever, and damage. I'm pretty sure maybe a little bit higher, you know what I mean, as far as damage goes. But they got the Russians have megaton powerful damage nuclear warheads. Megaton, from kiloton to megaton, right? You know, you're talking about a whole different game here. And these people actually believe they're going to go down into their deep underground bunkers, you know, and ride out a nuclear holocaust. And they're just going to pop out of their hatches when it's all done in about 3 or 4 months, and everything's going to be hunky-dory, right? We'll just let Russia and America start a nuclear war. We'll just sit back and we'll become the kings and queens. We'll pop out of our hatch. These people actually believe it. Maybe they got a golden ticket to the moon. They got a moon base set up already. They got continuity of government operations already set up in Mars or the moon. Maybe they'll have a nuclear war on the moon too. Wow, that's diversity. Maybe Mars also, again. A lot of people believe that Mars was the current state of Mars was the result of a nuclear war. I don't know. It seems pretty plausible to me. So, remember, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Okay? That's Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. It doesn't say, blessed are the peace breakers. Those are the children of Satan. There's been multiple peace deals that both parties agreed to that they reneged on. They could have stopped this before it even started. Okay, so with that said, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you're from. This concludes the live stream, and God bless.